Um, so I've tried to make this video a million times, but it just never really comes out perfect enough. So I'm going to start it off by just saying that I'm going to ramble. I'm probably going to cry, and it's going to be probably the realest, rawest video I've ever made. Um, yeah. So, as you saw by the title, um, I want to talk about kind of why God lets crappy things happen to good people. Um, or another version of the question is, if God really loves us, why does he let crappy things happen? Um, why don't we ever get to know why this crappy thing happened? Um, because about 8 years ago, I had a really crappy thing happen in a time of my life where things should have been going really well. And they were. I was just getting ready to graduate from beauty school. I had just been accepted at this life-changingly amazing Christian summer camp that I had gone to as a teen and just absolutely fallen in love with. I had just been accepted there as a camp counselor, and so I was about a month out from graduating from beauty school, heading out to the camp. Everything was going really great. And then I get the news one day on my way into beauty school, kind of third personally. I don't know, it was very weird how I got the news. I was picking up my friend who we carpooled in to beauty school together, and I picked her up, and she told me that she might have to leave early to go and be with a friend who was really upset because this person that they knew had just died. And so I asked her, like, oh, hey, like, who died? And when she told me that it was my best friend in the whole entire world, Dawn Taylor, I just died, like, right then and there. I just, like, this whooshing sound, and I felt like I was underwater and I couldn't breathe, and I was like, are you kidding me? Um, a little bit of a backstory. So, this is my best friend in the world, my sister, my soulmate, my just other half, Dawn. We met when I was the summer between my 5th and 6th grade year. And from then on, we were basically inseparable. And a lot of crappy things happened, a lot of good things happened. Um, Later on in my high school years, we ended up kind of separating just because she had to move more up north. We didn't quite see each other. When she lived down here, she lived right in the next neighborhood over. We were literally like every single day over at each other's houses. During the school year, not so much, obviously, but after school, we were always together. And then in the summer, we were sisters, we lived at each other's houses. And um, later on, after she moved, she kind of got in with some not so great people, and she ended up coming back down here, and I saw her. I found out that she had come back down, and we started hanging out again, and we were going to start going to church together. And I was very busy with just a lot of things and with life, and so I didn't really talk to her as much. I could tell that she was kind of here and there, and she was battling a lot of her own personal demons. And I blamed myself a lot. So when I found out that she died, I blamed myself. It was my fault. I was so convinced that it was my fault that she had died of a drug overdose. It was my fault that she didn't feel like she had the support. It was my fault that she was even in with the wrong people, because it was me. Like, I was supposed to be the one to take care of her. So, because she didn't have her mom. Her mom had just died a few years earlier. Her dad and her stepmom were both very abusive alcoholics, which is why she left home. She didn't really have any family. All of her family lived in Delaware. She just had me. And I don't put myself on a pedestal when I say that I was the only good influence in her life, but like looking back, I was. A lot of the friends that she had, they just weren't really great friends. I'm saying a lot. She was a very big part of my life, and I, kind of helped keep her out of trouble a little bit here and there, and so I blamed myself so deeply when I found out. And like I said, at that point, I was getting ready to head off to this Christian camp, be a counselor. I was supposed to be that rock for these kids and for these teens, and like I kept asking God, how can I be this rock? How am I supposed to do this if I'm so broken? Like, I leave in a month. How is this fair that this happened right now? Of all the times in the world, I remember just breaking down and saying, of all of the years, of all of the months, why now is this happening? So not only was I blaming myself so deeply, like I was convinced in my heart and my head that it was my fault that my friend was dead. And I was just, I don't want to say I was mad at God that this happened, but I was very confused as to why God would allow this thing to happen at this time. So I moved out to Michigan. I was a camp counselor, and all summer I just kind of battled with this up and down, and why God would allow this to happen. And I think that in life we ask that a lot. We ask, why now? What am I supposed to learn? Everybody always says the cliche, everything happens for a reason and God has a plan. And I think that at some point, even the strongest Christian gets really fed up with hearing that God has a plan and everything happens, but it really is true. And I think that that's kind of the point in me making this story, is that this story, that Dawn's story, it's such a perfect example of God's timing and God's, why he lets things happen the way they happen, when they happen. Because I feel like people can go for years. There's stuff that happened in my early, teen years that was the worst thing ever. But just kind of crummy stuff that I was asking, why, God? Like, why? And I still don't know. And you might never know. But this is a really perfect story. So I kind of wanted to share it with you guys and make a video, because it's about time that I tell this story. So when I'm at camp, there's the way that the camp works. When you're in high school, 9th through 12th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then the summer, like you had just graduated. So when you're at that age, you are in your girl cabin, but then you're also with a team. So there's a sister cabin and a brother cabin, and you guys are a team the whole week. You do activities together. You basically do everything together except sleep together and have your devotions. You're in the girls' cabin and the boys are down the road in the boys' cabin. So we were walking back one day from the high ropes course, and there was a boy in the brother cabin who he was very to himself. The counselor that was the guy counselor that was with me, I don't remember exactly, if we had talked about him or if maybe I had just seen that he was kind of like down and gloomy and just kind of to himself, and maybe I just took it upon myself to talk to him. I really don't remember, but I remember this particular day we were all walking back, and it was kind of a bad week. I think that I had been asking some questions about Dawn because she and I had gone to that camp ourselves just a few summers before. And so I started talking to him, and it turns out that his best friend had just died. He had just committed suicide. And this boy was just blaming himself. And he said, it's my fault. And I said, I know how you feel. And he gave me this look like, yeah, right, lady, like, yeah, you know how I feel. So I told him my story about Dawn. And when I got finished, he gave me this look like, wow, you really do know how I feel. And, we were able to talk, and his heart was open to listening, because I really did know how he felt. And you could tell that that's all he wanted, was someone who genuinely knew. Because this whole time, he'd had people saying things like, oh, buddy, I know how you feel, like, I'm so sorry. And you don't really know. But for me to be able to genuinely tell him, I know how you feel. And for me to I had, in all this time, I had kind of worked through that it wasn't my fault. That, I did everything that I could, but that maybe God had taken her out of this world because she was just too good for this broken world and for, the situations that she was in. God had saved her from worse ones by just taking her. And I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but, basically I had learned to kind of start forgiving myself that really wasn't my fault. So I was able to talk to him and genuinely be able to mourn with him, but to grow and heal with him. And he was able to kind of start forgiving himself and to kind of start, accepting that it really wasn't his fault that his best friend committed suicide. And looking back, and even kind of then, right after this situation happened and we were talking, I realized, maybe that one kid was the whole reason that I came to camp here. Maybe my suffering because of Dawn's death and being able to relate to this one kid, because if I hadn't, no one that week would have been able to talk to him. He would have gone home after that week and still been blaming himself and still been angry and still been so hard in his heart because of this situation, because no one was able to understand. But because of what I had just gone through and because I was where I needed to be, I was able to be that light for him. And so right then, because I was kind of in a really good place prayerfully, I was able to see, like, God, this is why it happened. Like, this is why she died. And this is why I was where I was, and I was in the cabin I was, and just, I was able to see the whole synchronicity of it, which I thought was really cool. And, like, yes, it sucks that this crappy thing had happened, but it was great to be able to see how God was able to use that really crappy thing for good. So, I don't know what happened to him when he went home. I don't know, what was in his heart. But all I know is that he was genuinely able to breathe a little easier, to forgive himself a little more, to pray a little bit kinder and not have so much hatred and so much, confusion why this situation happened, because it happened, like 2 weeks before he came to camp. So we literally were in a very similar boat. So this crappy thing happens in life, and you don't know what's going on. You don't know what to do. You don't know why it's happening. And there's a lot of confusion, but there is a reason. And even if that reason is to get on Facebook and make a post about how crappy it feels, someone else is going to read that post and be able to relate to you and be able to find maybe a little bit of forgiveness to themselves. You never know, but My point is that this really crappy thing happened, and I was blessed to be able to see how God used it for good. And I was in a mindset, because looking back on all these other situations, I can see, this crappy thing happened, and then this happened because of it, and I could see God looking back. But I was in a really good place then, that I was able to see God then. And I was able to see his power and how he works. And, so many people these days say, like, God isn't here, miracles don't happen, crappy things just happen to happen, and nothing ever good happens from them. But this good thing happened. And yeah, it sucks that I don't have my best friend, and I miss her every day. And it's 8 years later, and I still bawl my eyes out sometimes because I miss her so much. But this good thing happened. And now I'm making this video, and I'm sharing this story, as butchered as this poor little video is, because I want more good things to happen. I want people to see this video and to know that God is still there, and he does still have a plan, and he is still going to use your suffering and your pain for his glory. And he is, going to help you heal. And it might take 8 years, it might take 28 years, but it's okay, and you're going to heal. And when you share your story of your crappy thing that happened, other people are going to be able to heal too. And if we can use our crappy things to help heal other people and to help give other people hope, we can start healing this world. So don't lose hope, don't lose faith. Don't blame yourself. Because I think back, I could have done everything perfectly. I could have been right there with her. She could have been living at my house, under my care all the time, and this still could have happened. And I could live with the what ifs, I could ask the what ifs, but the fact is, and the truth is, that this crappy thing happened, and I was able to share my testimony of how I was able to get through it and what I was going through at that time to heal, to help someone else start their healing process. And that's kind of what it's all about, is my broken, sad little self was able to share my broken, sad little story with someone else who was in the same sad, broken boat, and together we were able to start healing. So don't think that your story is insignificant. Don't think that God does these crappy things, God allows these crappy things to happen just to happen. They do happen for a reason, and I know that's such a cliche saying, but they do. And you're going to get through it, and it's going to be okay, and beautiful, amazing things are going to happen when you share your story. So thank you for listening to my tale and my story. And if you ever want to talk, if you're going through something crappy and you just don't know which way is up, I'm here. I haven't been through all the crappy, but I've been through some stuff, and I'm always happy to talk. And if you don't want to talk to me or someone else, there's always someone out there who's willing to listen. But it is good to talk, and it is good to get it off your chest. So thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.